Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Melanin Margin, the weekly chat show where conversations about race are never off the table. We're your hosts, Quaviondre Williams.
And Daquon Wilson.
So let's get into this week's conversation. What's hot on the table this week?
Nicki Minaj and Latto have gotten into an online feud following a dispute about their hit songs. Over the weekend, Nicki took to social media to voice her disapproval about her single Super Freaky Girl reportedly being considered for the 2023 Grammys pop categories, despite submitting the song to be included in the rap categories. In making her point, she said that Latto's big energy should also be removed from rap categories. She tweeted, quote, I have no problem being moved out of the rap categories as long as we are all being treated fairly. If Super Freaky Girl has to be moved out, then so does Big Energy, end quote. Shortly after Minaj's tweet, Latto tweeted, quote, damn, I can't win for losing. All these awards and noms, I can't even celebrate, end quote. In the screenshot, Latto said she agreed with Nicki's argument regarding the Grammys, but said, quote, because of where we left off, I don't think you need to bring my name and song up to prove your point, end quote. Nicki Minaj responded in a tweet stating, quote, this Karen has probably mentioned my name in over 100 interviews, says she's waited in line for Pink Friday with her Barbie chain on, bangs, pink hair, but today Scratch Off decides to be silent rather than speak up for the black woman she called her biggest inspiration, end quote. Lotto responded by calling Nicki a 40-year-old bully, adding that she has been ignoring subliminal disses from Nicki since March. So, Andre, that begs the question, do you think that established artists should be asking up and coming artists to speak out against the industry?
I think it definitely depends on the situation. For example, like Monique was blackballed in Hollywood because after fulfilling all of her contractual obligations for Precious, Oprah, Tyler Perry, Lee Daniels wanted her to do additional promotional events, and she said no. Now, even though she was in the right, because she refused to play the game, as so many people say you should, Hollywood still turned their back on her. Now, thankfully, Monique had an established career and was able to bounce back from it. But even at her level, her career and reputation still suffered greatly because of her honesty. Now, from this incident and so many others like it, we know that if you are vocal about the systems of power that work against you, that this puts a larger target on your back, which makes those systems work twice as hard to silence you or break you. Now, when you apply this logic to the Nicki Minaj versus Latto situation, it seems that Nicki is speaking from the privilege of having a very well-established career. Now, Latto is still a fairly new artist to some degree, like in terms of recognition and accolades. Her career is not on the same level as Nicki Minaj. Now, this is not to say that Nicki Minaj wouldn't suffer any pushback from the industry for her candid discussion about the unfairness she's experienced. However, the pushback for someone at Nicki's level is not the same, or even in the same scope as pushback from an up and coming artist would receive. Where Nicki may be able to afford to lose a gig here and there, or a few deals that the music industry tries to attack her, Latto is still trying to build up a name and a platform. This kind of pushback that she could get from going against the industry could not only be detrimental to her career, but it could end her career before she's even got her heels like dug into the ground. Now, again, we don't know the full story, so I'm not taking sides, so to speak. But from what we know, I think it sounds a little unfair of Nicki Minaj to say that Latto isn't supporting another Black woman simply because she isn't publicly saying that Big Energy should be moved to the pop category as well. Like, I think that Nicki Minaj bringing up Latto's song and her critique opened up the wrong dialogue about the issue Nicki was talking about. Like, instead of the discussion being about the unfairness of her song being taken out of the rap category, it devolved into a beef between her and Latto. Not to mention that this beef being brought to social media has actually done significant harm to Nicki Minaj's public image as an artist. Like, people are saying that, while she may be talented, the fact that she's consistently involved in drama with rising artists is starting to make people believe that she's the common thread, or that she doesn't handle competition well. Now, whether or not this is true is, up to your own personal perception of her character. But I think that the original point that she was trying to make about the industry didn't come out like she originally intended it. But Daquon, what do you think?
I agree with you. I think before anything, I think that both Latto and Nicki Minaj are talented people. They deserve their
Exactly.
flowers.
Yeah.
And they are both talented Black women. And this entire platform that we have does not disparage Black women, period.
At
Point
all.
blank. But with that being said, I think that these comments just aren't it. They aren't it in terms of, like you said, this entire conversation could have happened differently. Nicki
Yeah.
Minaj could have focused on her song itself being put into the wrong category versus bringing up another artist and, starting this whole thing. And again, I don't know the entire situation of all the
Yeah.
beef Latto and Nicki has, or the subliminal messages, or the what happened in the DMs between them. But I do think that Latto also has a point of just like being hurt that, oh, my name has been brought up in this situation. I wasn't even doing anything. I
Yeah.
wasn't a part of this conversation at all. And I do think that if Nicki, approached this in a different way, Latto could have been on her side and rallying and getting her fans to join in this conversation,
Yeah.
because this isn't a conversation that is a one-off thing. People have been talking time and time again about artists, especially Black artists, being put into the wrong categories. For example, every single Black woman singer being in R&B, even though every single song they do isn't R&B, or people talking about Doja Cat's placement in different award shows because she is somebody that moves between rap and pop and R&B, but they always try to put her in the wrong category for certain songs. So this could have been a great conversation to have had it have been approached in a different way. However, as it stands now, I do think that, this is the time for Nicki to really reflect on her power in this situation, because
Mm-hmm.
she is a respected person in the industry. She has a legacy and she has a power. Yeah, people are talking about her tarnishing her legacy with these beef, but at the end of the day, Nicki has done so much for the rap industry, period,
Mm-hmm.
point blank, for the music industry as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And if I am a smaller artist, I would be intimidated to speak up against the industry, especially knowing, this is something that's happening to a huge artist. Because I would be thinking, oh, if this can happen to Nicki Minaj, who is this, legend, it
Mm-hmm.
can also happen to me, who's not to her level yet. So I think that it is a bit unfair, or, comes from a place of privilege for bigger stars to ask up and coming artists or smaller artists to really go after the industry in a certain way, because we know that blackballing does happen. But
Yeah.
I do think that there was something to this argument that should have been,
The
a
focus.
conversation and the focus.
Yeah, I fully agree. And even like you said, Little Nas X too is another one who's been put in the wrong category before, or had been trying to be pushed out of country because they were like, oh no, that's actually this. And I also think that as marginalized people, we don't all have the same privilege to speak our minds fearlessly. Like, and there's a reason, like a very valid reason for that. Going against system of power, in place is no easy feat, and it's full of risks. Like I said earlier, like, it would be amazing if we could all speak out against the unfair things that happen to us, but not everyone can. Like, we know that as Black people, especially in the workplace, when we're being microaggressed or disrespected by white people, specifically white women, that we have to navigate that situation very carefully and cautiously. Like where a white man can check a white woman and be unaffected by her white tears, if a black man or a black woman were to do the same, it could put them in a very precarious situation. Like we all navigate life differently based on what we are able to do. Like we should never sit in or just sit by and let an injustice occur. But we all have to recognize that one, not everybody is equipped with the fortitude it takes to stand up to the system without wavering. Two, not everyone can afford to risk it all in the same way that others can. And three, we should be very careful how we police the way that people show their support for a cause. But like, what are your thoughts on that, Daquon?
Yeah, I think that this is a situation where it really comes down to these systems of power are made to not be checked. Point blank,
Yeah.
period. And so even Nicki Minaj speaking out against that is taking a risk because, like how a lot of arguments are going, because she is speaking out, that she's easily being portrayed as this angry black woman who's never happy and just like can't
Mm-hmm.
enjoy what she's got. She always has to try to get something different, or people are being like, well, you're Nicki Minaj, you have this and that, why do you need a Grammy? And it's like, if Nicki Minaj as an artist has a goal to get a Grammy, that should be her goal, period. And we shouldn't have to try to put her down for having a goal, even if she got all of these other different accolades and awards and stuff like that. Because if she wants that, that is what she wants. And I also think that Latto may know that because she's also a black woman. Um, Even having, light skin privilege, stuff like that, she can still be easily the target of being called an angry black woman if she speaks out against the industry. So it really puts both of these artists in a precarious place to kind of put them against each other, or try to pit them against the industry, because we know these stereotypes that will come in place.
Yeah, and it's really sad, especially, considering that, like you just said too, her argument was valid. Like there was validity in that, and there was a conversation to be had about that. But the way in which it was approached, specifically with the involvement of Lotto, it just kind of, again, like I said earlier, just kind of devolved the entire situation into beef versus in like pitting these two black women against each other versus being like, hey, this is a problem that Hollywood is doing. And I think that oftentimes too, Hollywood kind of relies on that kind of ideals or those kind of ideals to keep those systems of power in place. So while we're all focused, or even just the fact that we're even having this conversation about the beef between the two of them and not about the issue of what Nicki Minaj brought up, it's just a kind of a showing of what this does is like the whole situation was turned on its head. And so the whole message of what it is has been lost in translation. And now we have Lotto who's going back and forth with Nicki, and now we have their fans and her and Nicki's fans and Lotto's fans going against each other, trying to compare who's better, who's this, who's that, instead of being like, hold on, this is a problem that can affect all of us, and this is a problem that has been going on. Let's focus on that.